This is apple mint in Finch Frolic Garden Permaculture's food forest, and I wanted to show you that there are many pollinators and other insects other than the European honeybee that we need to provide for. This is in San Diego County, California. It's a humid August morning in 2019. This stand of mint, the apple mint, we allow to bloom specifically for having nectar sources for the tiny little insects that live here. So you can concentrate on the movement that is smaller than the honeybees, and you can see what I'm talking about. The little tiny insects that are in here. There's bees, wasps, and flies, some of which are the size of like a freckle or smaller, that are our native pollinators and predatory insects. They're all part of our integrated pest management system. We don't have a native honeybee to North America, so all the honeybees you see here were brought in for honey. And they take up a portion of the landscape that resources that our native insects require. But yet I do like my honey, and if you plant enough, there's enough to go around. That blackish guy down there that's the size of a bee is a tachnid wasp. He's a predatory wasp. Or tachnid fly, rather, excuse me. So all this activity on the mint, these tiny little bees, wasps, and flies are all part of our integrated pest management system. And they require food, water, and shelter, like any living creature does. There's a butterfly right there. And there's moths in here as well. And for these little tiny guys, huge flowers, huge in comparison to their size, are not going to be able to provide them with what they need. So they need clusters of small flowers that they can get into without being dominated by a larger insect that comes in next to them and pushed aside or stepped on. They need little sources of nectar they won't drown in. And they need clusters of flowers close together because, of course, they can't travel huge distances to find food. They're very tiny. So the apple mint is a non-native here. But in conjunction with this, we also plant lots and lots of native plants of various flower structures, but particularly those that have the clusters of little flowers like this, like buckwheat, California lilac, etc., because they provide food for these little guys. So this is all part of our integrated pest management system, because these little guys are doing what they need to do to pollinate and also to keep a control over large amounts of invasive insects like aphids and scale, etc. And of course, the fewer invasive insects you have, the fewer wounds you have in your plants, so the less likelihood you're going to be getting fungus or other airborne contaminants that come in and bother your plants. So here in permaculture, we don't use any sprays. We don't use any fertilizer. We don't use bagged goods of any sort. What we do use is compost. And we make that on site, or we just bury things. We use sheet mulch, and we take grass clippings and green clippings and wood and kitchen waste and whatever else that we have, and we combine it in raised beds to make our vegetable garden. And I will swing out here without trying to make you guys sick. That's our California redbud. And here is our vegetable garden this year. This is corn, as high as an elephant's eye. This is a hard corn, which means that we will dry it and grind it for cornmeal. And there's sweet potatoes underneath. This is zucchinis. But the raised beds, as you can see, we fill with cuttings and newspapers and kitchen scraps and whatever people give to us, and fill it up with layers of just regular dirt in there, and then top it with a couple inches of good compost. And I've blogged on this before. You can search under the vegetarian blog under raised beds and you'll see it. And then it makes incredible soil while you're still growing on it. Here's a bed that we just dug up. The potatoes, we've had multiple harvests from here, from Kentucky peas and beets and lettuces from here. We just dug up the potatoes and planted cucumbers, and then there's herb seeds in there as well, and a couple of beans. So, as you can see, things look pretty good in here. And we have not added anything to the soil. As far as bagged fertilizer goes, we do not spray. If a plant is in desperate need of some attention for some reason, we make actively aerated compost tea. And I've gone through that on my blog as well. But the best thing, the most thing we do, besides building good soil, is planting for our native pollinators. All these tiny little bees, wasps, and flies. Some are the size of aphids or smaller, and they lay their eggs in aphids and kill them. It's not a happy, peaceful world in the insect realm, but you try to plant so that the guys you want have the habitat that they need. So plant your native plants. Take care of the little guys that you can hardly even see. It includes microbes in the soil. And you can have a chemical-free garden that's extremely successful and clean for the environment and for you and your family.